Important note, this article is not an official FIGU publication.
American Heritage Dictionary, American English.
Revolution. The overthrow of one government and its replacement with another. A sudden or momentous change in a situation. Civil war. A war between factions or regions of the same country. A state of hostility or conflict between elements within an organization.
North American War and USA Civil War and/or Revolution. A possibility, information availability about the so-called American Civil War II and III is limited, and the information presented on this page hasn't been exhaustive of the repository. There are hundreds of wars, civil wars, and revolutions prophesied for lots of countries all over the world. America is not by any means an exceptional case. America's Prophecies by Billy Meier have been talked about most of all because of the nationality of the speakers, for example, by Michael Horn, Randolph Winters, Wendelle Stevens, etc., and because most interest in Billy Meier has stemmed from America. It is relevant to the audience. Probably because it's a land comprised of many forward-thinking, progressive, independent individuals. The prophesied civil wars in Europe are said to be gruesome by contrast. To put the two American civil wars into perspective, circumstances have to be in place for it to begin. The definition of a prophecy is different to the definition of a prediction, and different again to a probability calculation for that matter. The source texts reference different frames of time spans, with additionally varying prerequisite and preceding factors. What's more, the original Swiss-German text may have included keyword signifiers and utilized vernaculars which haven't necessarily been passed along and over by the translator during the translation process. With a prophecy, it is possible that a folk might change their general thinking, collective attitude and direction together, and in doing so, avoid the negative event altogether, or at least minimize its effects and improve its outcomes. Awareness on its own can be quite powerful. Once something has been explained and pointed out to a person and/or group of persons. Folks tend to gradually change when the identity of a thing or something is clarified and identified. Predictions, on the other hand, are different as explained. The creational natural law of cause and effect operates unconditionally, just like gravity. That means anything we do in this case, nationally and internationally, essentially comes back around in another way. That is to say, consequences. Everything always depends on how we manage the situation each and every time. And whatever we do now has an outcome in the future by deduction. Unfortunately, an outcome may manifest in the next generation altogether, and regrettably it's always the ordinary, decent, normal citizens who bear the brunt of anything horrible that happens, or which is decided upon nationally, which recourses back. Thus the principle of the revolution and/or civil war. Some nations' governments adopt a low-profile administrative type posturing as a means of staying out of folks' lives as much as possible in response to this reasoning. But for other nations, governments that is hardly possible and must be worked at. North America and America may mean United States of America, Canada, Mexico. 3 problems for your awareness and consideration before proceeding. 1. Prospective readers are first. Recommended to read The Deadly Might of Thoughts and Feelings, and specifically the might of nocebo preparations in relation to self-fulfilling negative prophecy. Focusing too heavily on a prophecy of a future event can be damaging to an individual's health. 2. Laziness can occur when the text is selected from the original source documents on the reader's behalf. 3. When read in context from original documents, the broader perspectives are appreciated and applied.
List of future American Civil War.
FIGU Bulletin 046, a word to Third World War.
There is, in fact, not a Third World War predicted. The prophecies speak solely of a possibility that such a war could become reality in the years 2003, 2006, 2010, and 2011, and in later years too, if the human being continues to pursue war on a military, political, and religious basis, and does not apply reason, and lets the mighty of religion and states muddle on, and lets the stupid and idiotic be incited by irresponsible and criminal elements.
Contact Report 215, The Hannock Prophecies.
2 terrible civil wars will break out in America, whereby one will follow the other. Afterwards, the United States of America will break apart, and deadly hostility will prevail among her, which then leads to the division into 5 different territories, and it cannot be prevented that sectarian fanatics will play a dictatorial role.
The Enoch Prophecies.
Contact Report 426. Something that would be hindered if humanity finally would stop sanctifying the criminal power-greedy ones and voting them in as their leaders.
Contact Report 427.
Unfortunately, the few reasonable ones can accomplish nothing against the mass of irrational ones and those who are slaves to the might-greedy ones, because they are still too few.
Contact Report 230.
Through it all, new wars will come into being just as much as will also monstrous state, commercial and private debts, commercial collapses through irresponsible maladministration, exploitation of many firms by their managers, bankruptcies, into which firms will be driven by management and maladministration, which will lead to monstrously great worldwide unemployment, and under certain circumstances can evoke a commercial and governmental collapse in all industrial countries. And monstrous terrorism will become evident worldwide, which will, to a great extent, in religious, sectarian, secret service, and open political form, be practiced in the coming time through suicide assassins, as well as through other cowardly attacks on the innocent and on their worldly possessions.
Contact Report 230. Predictions of the prophet Elia.
And there will be new and big empires across the big ocean, and one of these empires will send out new legions of barbaric hordes under the command of powerful rulers who are degenerated in the worst form of inhumanity to carry out wars and conquer the world in order to get hold of the country's mineral resources. But beyond the big ocean, the walls of cities and villages of the conquerors wanting to seize the world's power will collapse, and the empire will then be destroyed and be only a scorched land and muddy waters. And the peoples of the earth will interbreed, which causes a lot of harm, illnesses, infirmity and hatred, terror and revenge, as well as many deaths. And when these days arrive, humankind will be approaching very difficult times and will be standing before an impenetrable labyrinth. Its entrance will be shrouded in a dark gloom, as black as the darkest night, and the human being will step into this labyrinth, where the evil will glimmer with glowing red eyes of ruin and disaster. And when these days arrive, may the human being be on his guard, for the disastrous ruin will bear within destruction and innumerable deaths, a cruel rage and wrath degenerated in the worst form of inhumanity. And the days of ruin and disaster will be long, yet in the distant future of the coming time, everything will become lighter, and there will be love, peace, and freedom. It shall be so, for I see and hear in heaven, and know that it will be as I have proclaimed, for I am the herald Elia, and I speak the truth.
Warning to all the governments of Europe.
Threatening thunder will crack over the earth, and deaths in their thousands will rage when the criminal, national powers of the USA release war into the wide world, and when Israel's national forces spread just the same terror, murder, death, and corruption as the Palestinians themselves, from whom uncountable suicide bombers will go. All over the world, all variety of military and rebellious forms of murderers will recruit, out of all levels of the population, and drill the recruits into being murder machines devoid of feelings and conscience, to whom also every kind of torture is a shining joy. Organized murder and terror commandos will live secretly in cities worldwide and plan and carry out deadly attacks in order to kill thousands of people and produce unimagined destruction. There will be no more order and no effective rule to protect the lives of the people, because, through the fault of the warmongering national powerful ones, the rebellious, religious, sectarian, and fanatic terrorism will flare up like a bright flash in the night in order to sow death and corruption.
Contact Report 357.
You are perfectly correct, and you have listed a large part of the terrifying scenarios which already have existed for quite some time, which actually still spread out ever further and intensify, whereby the world fire finally can get completely out of control, which is unfortunately to fear.
FIGU Special Bulletin 31.
Nevertheless, however, factors threaten again in later years, which could indeed still lead to a Third World War, whereby it is to hope that also then the earth human's reason is victorious, and the right thing will be done by all who can bring their influence to bear.